Welcome to Acuity Acumen, the leadership podcast hosted by me, Deanna Armstrong. Hit subscribe and learn how great leaders think, decide, and show up like a boss. Welcome to Acuity Acumen, the podcast where we illuminate leadership and inspire change. I'm your host, Deanna Armstrong. Today, we are joined by Elina Lavit, a seasoned biotech executive with a remarkable 20-plus year track record in strategy, operations, and corporate development. Elina's expertise spans across various therapeutic areas and digital health, and she has recently transitioned to consulting, guiding companies to build winning strategies and actionable plans. From her recent role as VP of Business Development of OncoNano Medicine here in Dallas-Fort Worth, Elina has consistently driven success and advanced multi-billion-dollar assets, a true advocate for making an impact in healthcare and education. She is also deeply involved in her community. Today, we will explore her journey from Tel Aviv University to the heart of the blooming biotech scene in North Texas. This conversation will leave you inspired. This episode is proudly sponsored by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting, empowering leaders to navigate their journey with clarity and purpose. Now, let's get into a conversation that is all about strategic leadership and impact in the biotech sector with Elina Lavit. Welcome, Elina. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Well, just to let you know, our podcast has two different pieces. First, we'll talk about leadership and what leadership means to you. And then in the second half, we'll talk more about the wonderful work you're doing in the biotech industry, not only here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but your journey to what got you here today. So if we could get started, can you share with us who you are, a little more about your background, and then tell us what leadership means to you?
So I had quite a journey. I was born in previous Soviet Union and ended up immigrating to Israel when I was pretty little, and subsequently moving to the U.S. about 11 years ago, which is quite a journey. And
yes.
It's totally different cultures, different times, many opportunities of growth on the way, and that's something as a leader I like to adopt as well, because I'm always looking for opportunities to grow, and not only grow myself, but grow the others that I'm working with and individuals in my team, my kids, my family. And that's what shaped my past, shaped the current. I grew up in very modest conditions when we lived in Soviet Union, and that also made me be pretty mindful about how you look at things, what is really impactful and what will really move the needle versus what is nice to have. And that's where I'm very excited to be part of healthcare and life science, because I know it will move the needle. It will move the needle for the patients, it may move the needle for the doctors, and that can make a difference.
I love that. So it's making that impact and moving the needle, like you said, for healthcare. I was going to ask you what drew you to the biotech life sciences industry. And 11 years, that's a very short amount of time. And you've done a lot in those 11 years.
Sure.
So what are some of the skills that you think helped you to be successful in navigating this journey that you've been on recently?
Yeah, I think first of all, I started my career working for international companies. In Israel, I worked for Sanofi. I worked for Schering-Plough when it existed, subsequently Merck today, and transitioned to a biotech company which was acquired by J&J, and that's where I started already before moving to US, accumulating these skill sets and working on a global setting and understanding how drug development works, how manufacturing works, how quality assurance works. And moving to the US, and we moved to San Francisco Bay Area, we lived in Silicon Valley for an extended amount of time. That's where I had a chance to put it more to action, because coming to San Francisco, it's different than Israel in the sense that there substantially more investment in the biotech sector, and you have the ability to develop much more medications, drugs, therapies. I remember coming for the first time to South San Francisco and driving in, and the sign you see at the entrance is, "This is the birthplace of biotechnology," and it's very exciting.
Yes.
So these are the things that enabled me in my past, my education. I studied biology and economics. I have a master's in medical science.
Okay.
Enabled me to accumulate additional industry skills in being mentored by various types of leaders in a big organization to embark on a journey of working in various companies, San Francisco Bay Area, smaller, bigger. I actually started my career in a consulting space at the beginning in the US. That was my first opportunity, and subsequently transitioned to pharma companies.
So when you think about leadership, and because it took for you to do all these different roles, there were skill sets that you accumulated. So when you think about your leadership journey, what were some of the challenges that you faced as a leader, maybe leading teams, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah. So first of all, coming from at the beginning in the U.S., you don't have a lot of network and connections, and it takes time to build it. I didn't study in the U.S. I didn't go to high school in the U.S. And it takes a while, and you need to accommodate that. One of the first things I did, and I had a chance to discuss it yesterday, I helped to organize Women in Bio event in San Francisco Bay Area. I think I pulled it through 3 months after I arrived.
Okay. So is Women in Bio, is that an organization, or that's just a group of women that get together?
No, Women in Bio is an organization, had a chapter in San Francisco back then. And I remember with another lady, we just pulled a panel on market access and had an event in JJ Labs in South San Francisco, which was highly attended, but it was probably my month 3 in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
Obviously,
and that helped you build your network.
It helped me build my network. And since I organized many networking events in various capacities and various nonprofit organizations.
So, just curious, because networking is also about do you have like an actual process that you do is with follow-up and keeping in touch with people? How does that look?
I'm generally pretty good about building long-standing relationships. I have individuals I'm still in touch with whom I went to school. I mean, when I mean school, I actually mean elementary.
Oh, yes.
And I'm in touch with my colleagues from previous professional opportunities, both in Israel and in the U.S. I just recently got together with some of my ex-colleagues from the consulting firm, which was my first employer in the U.S. And it's a journey, and it's give and take, right? Because people may reach out to you for an advice. And also you can reach out to somebody else to ask specific professional question. In pharmaceutical development, you cannot be an expert in everything. It's very broad, so you always have the individual who has more knowledge in a specific domain, and that's where you build those relationships when you're an expert in a certain domain, you have certain network, and other individuals have their network and expertise in other domains, and that's where you share.
I love that. Were there big cultural differences? Is that similar to what you would have done if you were still in Israel?
I think it's pretty similar. If you take Israel and Silicon Valley, I think it's pretty comparable transition. Both places are very strongly tech-driven. The weather, to a certain extent, is similar. So from this perspective, I think it would be the same. In Israel, I attended networking events, and there it looks pretty similar.
Okay, good. And you've done a lot of your career in the business development realm, correct? And I think you've also done some strategy, and now you're working a little more in clinical trials.
I would say I'm working across the board because I had a chance to lead multiple assets in my past on the program management side, and was across the life cycle of those assets. And those assets some of them are multi-billion-dollar assets, like Imbruvica. For non-Hodgkin's lymphomas and GVHD. And Imbruvica is first in its class BTK inhibitor, and it's really life-changing for thousands, if not hundreds. It's hundred thousands of patients accumulatively.
Right.
And that's where I learn how you do these big life cycles and strategy. And it's very cross-functional because it depends on which different indications were in different stages. Some of the indications were launched. Some of the indications were in the stage when we are preparing for a readout. So that's where I got exposure to oncology clinical trials, and I'm very passionate about bringing oncology medications to patients. And there are a lot of challenges around bringing oncology medications to patients because clinical trials are taking a long time. It's hard to recruit patients. It's really hard to recruit patients in the US, especially after COVID.
So what are some of the things that you're doing to help reduce that bottleneck, to help bring these molecules to more patients so that they can actually enroll in trials? What's been working?
Yeah. So I had a chance to engage on the digital health space to see how the sites themselves can streamline their processes and make life easier to the healthcare personnel who is helping patients. Because at the end of the day, sometimes they do clinical trials, but it's in addition to their routine work of seeing the patients, and the processes might be cumbersome. So how we can make the journey for the healthcare personnel, how we can make the journey for the patients easier and faster. There are plenty of opportunity also to get engaged in education the patient. What is actually a clinical trial? What will be the benefit for them from the clinical trial? So this is another avenue that I care about.
And I'm thinking a lot of our audience is new to the biotech sector and maybe clinical trials and may not be used to some of the nomenclature. I know it's a long process. Is there a way that you could just break it down into like a few chunks to talk about what that clinical trial process looks like to bring a product to market?
Yeah. So first of all, you need to let's kind of talk about it in general because based on indications, it may vary. Let's assume we're talking about oncology and your first clinical trial will be in real patients. First of all, you need to really understand that what is the toxicity profile of the medication, and that's why you do the animal studies. And sometimes it's not straightforward. There were a few years ago, there was a substantial shortage of monkeys, and it took a while, and it was expensive to execute those tox studies. But without them, you couldn't clear your submission to the FDA and start the clinical trial and do a first-in-human trial. As I mentioned, in oncology, first-in-human trial will be conducted in individuals who have the disease. There is an opportunity to do it in the US, there is an opportunity to do it outside of the US. And based on your safety and efficacy, subsequently you decide which of the indications you want to continue to study. The biggest challenge also is, first of all, to find those patients, but also there is already existing standard of care. So you need to be superior to the existing standard of care. Otherwise, you don't really have an advantage over what's already these patients can get. And many times you actually study those patients who already relapsed on standard of care.
And relapse means that
they failed.
Okay.
Disease came back after being administered the standard of care, and now they need something else to try.
And that's what these small startups are doing, right? They are figuring out how they take this molecule, this concept, to actually developing a molecule. They're using animals to study to see how it works, and then once that concept is proven, you go into the human trials. That's a long process.
It's a long
process, yes.
And the fact that something is being approved by the FDA not necessarily mean that the patient will see it, because you also have the market access aspect of it. The access to medications themselves. And it's a whole world that's very hard to navigate, whether you're a patient on private insurance or public through Medicare, Medicaid.
So in working with startups, what advice do you give to them to navigate this whole system, because like you have the issues, like you said, or challenges with getting the drug approved, but now once it's approved, you actually have to have access to it. You have to have insurance to cover it and all of that. So me, if I'm a startup company and you've had experience with this, what challenges will I have, and how do you recommend that we overcome those challenges to set ourselves up for success?
So first of all, be very vigilant about what's going on around. Really understand what the indications you would like to pursue. What's the level of competitiveness that is there, and what will be your advantage? Mm-hmm. Will you be safer? You'll be more efficacious? Maybe the way you're going to administer the drug will be more advantageous. Think about those things, and don't forget to think about the access piece as well. Don't wait till the last minute when you already completed your phase 3 clinical trial to see how you're going to actually how the medication will be reimbursed. Before you plan your final clinical trial that you're going to submit to the FDA, start thinking before it how it may look like.
Yes, I know I've worked in R&D, and I remember talking to the chief marketing medical officer, because I came from a commercial side, and at first I had said, oh, you don't care about the access stuff. They were like, absolutely we care. Why will we be creating these novel medications if nobody can use them? And so I think that's great advice that you have for those startups. With your consultancy, what piece of that pie are you looking to target? Just curious.
I think it depends on, I'm not the expert on the market access, because it's pretty complex, and again, there are continuous policy changes. Mm-hmm. We have the IRA Act now as well, so you need to...
What's that?
So IRA Act, there is an opportunity to negotiate pricing of the drugs for Medicare. Okay. And that's where there were 10 drugs that were already went through this process. 15 new drugs that new to the process were announced in January this year. Okay. Meaning that throughout the next few quarters there'll be public discussions about these medications, and I think that's the new part versus the previous round of IRA drug negotiations. There'll be public hearing for each of these drugs, 15 public hearings, and subsequently there'll be a new price announced for those drugs. Okay. When it comes to clinical trials and how to set it up and how to build a roadmap, these are my bread and butter and expertise, and that's where I mainly focus on. But again, as we come back to the network, I have the network of the individuals to whom I can tap into when the specific questions arise, whether it's at the company or just me consulting with them on something minor.
Oh, fantastic. So you serve as a conduit for that startup to connect with the people that they need to in different subject matters. That's fantastic. Yeah. The master networker here. And Elina is a master networker, let me tell you. I've seen her work her magic around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which brings me to your journey here. You've been in Dallas, you said, for how long now?
Since summer of 2021, so kind of still COVID times.
Oh, still COVID times. Interesting. You came from the Mecca, right? The birthplace of biotech. Yeah. To Dallas-Fort Worth, where we have a blooming biotech sector. What were your initial thoughts back then, and what progress have you seen since you've been here?
So when I moved to join Taysha Gene Therapies as executive director of their program and portfolio management, and Pegasus Park was just up and coming. I think Taysha were the first tenants in the tower. And the building was empty. The elevators were covered with plastic. Brand new.
It
was brand new. Biolabs was still in works.
Wow. Okay.
So that's, I think, having and then Biolabs is up and running. Biolabs, I think it's full or almost full today with tenants and labs. And that's where you see the growth and the opportunity, because now you have the ability to have your lab space, your office space. It's co-located. It's close to UT Southwestern and other medical institutions. Mm-hmm. Local companies can span out to there. Companies from other places in the U.S. or from other places in the world, because there are a lot of interest also to come to be in Texas for companies not necessarily they originated in the U.S. And these are the places where things are growing, and also these are the places when you meet other companies and you meet and network with them and understand how all of you together can grow the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is also, the DFW itself is growing tremendously. There's a substantial amount of individuals working remotely from various companies, and each time you go to an event, you find out about somebody who works and lives here, but not necessarily goes to the office. So.
Right, thankful for technology. If you were to do a SWOT analysis with the strength part of being in Dallas-Fort Worth and was some areas of opportunity for us, what would they be?
I think we'll need more talent. I think in various types of level, more awareness. The challenge that I see, there are individuals who grew up here, went to college to someplace else, and they want to come back here and be part of the ecosystem, work in biotech and medical devices, and there are not necessarily enough professional opportunities for them, and they need to go geographically to someplace else, though their families here and they grow up.
Yes.
And I think it's changing.
Yes.
And I think the quality of life in DFW is superb.
Yes.
And
it's hard to leave, right?
It's hard to
no
leave.
No state income tax. You get an automatic, you got an automatic raise, even if you didn't get a raise in your salary coming from California to Texas with no state income tax, that's already a raise.
Yeah, education system is pretty good. It's very accessible. DFW is a very big airport. We have another airport. There's plenty of things to do. Yes, you can say it's hot, have a substantial amount of the year.
Sometimes, yes.
But still, you have a lot of nice indoors activities that you can do. And
yeah, I love that. So do we have our strengths? We have our opportunities. The opportunity you said is the biggest piece is getting more professional jobs, you say, but the strengths are the cost of living, the community that you have. And I know we talked a little bit about the collaboration here in DFW with your roles that you've worked for 2 different companies here.
Really?
So from your perspective of a person coming in from a different country, a different part of the U.S., and then here, what does collaboration look like here versus other places? And do you have any examples of successes that you've had in collaborating with people?
I think here, as I mentioned in biolabs, when you have the co-location of a cluster of small-sized companies, it's very, very productive, I think, for both sides. When I entered the biolabs for the first time, and there were already both lab tenants there and office tenants, I looked at it and it reminded me when I worked for a big company, when you have the labs and the offices co-located in the same building and can go and interact with others. And I know that companies, there are networking events. They talk between each other. Some of them share equipment because it's a shared lab space. But at the end of the day, that's where the resources. Let's say certain company needs to hire certain resource, and this resource want to transition from her company. They can just go and transition to a different company. And I think that's where it's pretty typical to have those type of settings in our domain of the biotech or medical device. And I'm glad that we have more and more of these settings here in the DFW area. Yeah. And I think there is another opportunity coming. Will be another location in Plano that is up and coming.
Oh, the Texas Research Quarter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you also have DeSoto. The city of DeSoto is having a research area down there as well. And one of our guests, Panthera Biosolutions, actually just announced their second location in the DeSoto Biotech Center. I can't remember the name of it. I know they'd probably kill me, but sorry, Matt, I can't remember the name of it. And back to you, because I'm very intrigued. I think that's very brave to move from continent to continent across country. I think that's brave. And I wanted to know, what's inspiring you to keep pushing boundaries and making a difference in leadership and then also in the world of biotech?
I think the most inspiring for me, the fact that I know that I can impact other people's lives. Yes, I'm not I'm not a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor. It didn't pan out. But it doesn't mean by my day-to-day life, I won't be able to make a difference by either medications that I'm contributing to their approval and leading their approval, or medical device or technology, and it can be digital technology or streamlining certain healthcare processes. So that's what inspires me and make me going in the morning. And sometimes you have setbacks. I've been in situations when clinical trial failed. I've been in situations when companies needed to reduce their workforce and they prioritize and not actually to pursue their original goals of many programs at once. But that's where you look at it as a growth opportunity. You learn from it, and you move on. Tomorrow is a new day, and you just move on and start fresh sometimes, or just see what you can do what you can do differently with the current one.
I would think, I know some people say it's hard to just move on sometimes. What advice do you give to people to have them to keep moving on if they've been in those type of situations? Because the economy today is kind of quirky.
Yeah, that's true.
There is a lot of change and uncertainty right now. And I just honed in on that because you said, let's just keep moving forward. What do you recommend that somebody would do in that situation?
I think first of all, sit down with yourself and reflect a little bit, because all of us are different. Some individuals can move forward faster, some of us need more time. Talk with others. Don't hesitate, because you'll definitely find individuals who'll be your sounding board and will be happy to support you. And look at your career as multifaceted. You're on one hand, yes, you know how to do drug development, but maybe you have other things which are not related to drug development, which you like to do, and you can do them. Your hobby may become your job as well. Maybe you are a talented musician or excellent cook, so you can pivot and do other things. And sometimes do them in parallel, or sometimes do them sequentially. But all of us will probably going to wear multiple hats throughout our career, and we'll have to learn a lot of new skills. And we just need to be open towards that.
Yes. And March is Women's History Month. When you think about your career over the past 20 years, what is something that you are most proud of? That's my first part of the question.
Yeah, I think the thing actually I'm the most proud of probably on a program I ran in Israel, because we were in a very tricky situation there, and it's public knowledge, so I can talk about it. Okay. There was a situation where there was a class recall for normal human immunoglobulins, and we were also part of this class recall, and it's multiple companies pulled their products from the market, and putting the product back in the market it took a while. We needed to change the manufacturing process, and it had its challenges. Before we pulled it out, a majority of the market was our product, and it's life-saving for those individuals. And it was a real struggle, and we wanted to do as fast as possible. And it was really agile for me to work with a very small team and lead them. And subsequently, we're able to pass a lot of hurdles, but we needed to continue pushing through. And I believe back there in the day, like 10, 11 years ago, it was about 400 to 500 people getting the medication every single month. But today, I assume it's much more. And probably there are additional players in the market, but still, this normal human immunoglobulins from my previous company, which is Omrix, now J&J, is in the market.
Okay, so it was pulled, but then
pulled and put back with some manufacturing changes. And I think that was really hands-on, intense failures, successes with eventual successes that I'm very proud of.
The whole gamut of emotions through there. And I would wonder so again, back to Women's History Month, a lot of women we're pushing for more girls and more women in STEM. When you talk about your success, I wanted you to feel makes you feel really good. What advice do you give to a young woman who is looking at you today saying, man, I want to be able to impact patients' lives in this way. I want to learn more about biotech. how do I go about it? What would you say to them?
I think really today with the access to technology, you obviously you can take classes in school, and but you also can go online and find a lot of useful materials. Science museums, biolabs sometimes have open days, but not only biolabs. And you can just go and talk with professionals. Some high schools have days when professionals come to high school and talk about their professional careers and just try to learn what other individuals doing. It's not trivial. Sometimes get some shadowing in the labs, because that's, at the end of the day, that's where you feel the science and you feel if you're connected to it or not connected to it. Obviously, there is also a clinical research. Clinical research you can read in papers and here at conferences. You can also sometimes attend professional conferences almost in minimum cost as a student, as a high school student, as a college student. Take advantage of those as well.
That's a lot. So you can attend conferences as a student, which I didn't realize that at a lower rate. That's fantastic, because when you look at the cost of them, it's kind of scary for some of them. So that's good to know. Shadowing, you said, is important, and I like it. And getting that experience and exposure in the lab, that field, is key. But the research, a lot of the skills that you need to have when you're working like in a scientific environment, to be able to start exercising those already, just to learn even more about it.
Yeah.
So I like that.
And I think in high school you have the AP in seminar, AP in research. So you can do some of this work. There are also international science fairs and local science fairs, which eventually elevates to international science fair. And I think 2 years ago, international science fair was here in Dallas, and so I judged one of the categories, but some of my colleagues, friends, also judged different categories.
I'm sure that was amazing. The things that these young minds are thinking about.
No, it's phenomenal, and I think it's that's where you push yourself forward, and that's where you can also get feedback from other professionals, and not only your teachers. And
that's another important thing, to get the feedback, to get input along the way. So thank you for bringing that up. And I'm sure you work a lot, but I'm sure you may have time to enjoy the community and have fun. So what do you do outside of work?
Yeah, so I like to read, and sometimes I read 2 books in parallel as well. I read and listen generally. I have my book on the phone, and I have the same audiobook, so I can finish it faster. I like to hike here in Dallas. Again, sometimes it's not really feasible.
A couple of places we can go.
Yeah. Yes. There are hiking opportunities, but just the weather sometimes doesn't permit you to really go hiking.
5 days a year.
And then I like to spend time with my friends, with my family, even my daughters, my husband. We host a lot of people in our house.
The party house. Okay,
yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And we're coming to the close of our conversation. Is there anything that you want to make sure that our viewers know about you and the work that you're doing?
I think what's important is just decide for yourself what will make an impact and strive forward, even in the very small steps. Never give up. Like if you do every day a very small step, you'll still get there. And just continue. Okay. And there'll be a lot of failures, but there'll be still successes. It's worthwhile. If you believe in something, just go and continue.
What is it, a song or a saying? If at first you don't succeed, get yourself up and try again. Yeah. Dust yourself off and try again.
Yeah, dust it yourself.
And I hear that theme throughout our conversation, that keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. And if you need to take small steps, take small steps. So I appreciate you inspiring us to continue to move forward in whatever our pursuit is. So thank you for that. And my final question for you is, thinking to the future of the biotech life sciences industry here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, when we fast forward 10 years and somebody's talking to you, what would you like for them to say your impact was on this journey that we are on today?
I wanted to say that I had the leadership opportunity and led various companies here to better success, better focus, and make themselves bigger and greater here in DFW area, and also potentially brought in additional companies that were not originally originated from the technologies that are here.
Awesome. So to continue to lead.
Yeah.
Yes, and to be an impactful leader. So thank you so much for your time. That was an insightful conversation with Elina Lavit. We explored her journey, her leadership philosophy, and her passion for driving innovation in the biotech industry. Elina's expertise is translating strategy into action, coupled with her dedication to building a strong team. She offers invaluable lessons for leaders in any field. Thank you, Elina, again, for sharing your wisdom and experience with us today. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on this insightful episode of Acuity Acumen. If you enjoyed today's discussion, we encourage you to become a subscriber, share, and follow the podcast to stay up to date on future episodes. Your support helps us to continue to illuminate leadership and inspire change. Thanks for joining us on Acuity Acumen. I hope you found today's episode filled with insights that inspire change and drive your leadership forward. In a rapidly evolving industry, your role as a leader is crucial. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to catch our upcoming discussions. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting. Are you ready to elevate your impact? Reach out for personalized coaching or to explore Acuity Acumen Leadership Institute. Together, we can illuminate leadership and inspire change. Keep leading boldly and making an impact. Until next time.